All right. Sorry, I got to clear my throat here. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Dynasty Tradecast. As always, I'm your host, Eric Bertzloff, better known on Twitter as @DynastyTrades, joined by my co-host, Nathan Powell. We're once again Danless Nathan, but hopefully he's back soon.
I have a feeling, there's energy in the air. I can feel a Dan appearance coming soon. Just gonna start I have a Dan shrine in my closet that I pray to every night that he'll come back to the Tradecast.
What's in the Dan shrine?
Well, as some people may know, I met Dan last week at the Hard Rock in Tampa. He was in town for work, and so I actually clipped a piece of his hair, and so it's just a shrine to Dan, and it has a locket of his hair.
No kidding. Well, I heard through our chat that you guys hung out, but I doubt the listeners are aware that you took him to the Hard Rock Cafe out of all the restaurants.
No, Hard Rock Casino.
Oh, casino, different. Better, actually. You guys lose any money?
I didn't, because I don't have money to lose. But basically, we were walking around the casino, just like chatting, talking about all of these fantasy people and how much you guys are all terrible. And Dan was like, "Hey, do you want to play that slot machine?" I'm like, "No, I don't want to lose money." And then he ended up playing some video poker and lost all his money.
All right, that sounds about right. Sounds like Dan. All right, well, enough bantering on about you and Dan meeting in real life. We have a guest today, and that is Travis May of the Dynasty Command Center. A new podcast has just come out, to my knowledge here. What are you, 4 episodes in, Travis?
Yeah, 4 episodes in. It's been a lot of fun. I made it through 115 episodes of the Dynasty Live podcast with Justin and Andrew. And so it was about time for some change, and I no longer have editing responsibilities. So that was a major plus.
Someday I'll wave that on to somebody else. Do you have like a full-time editor? Because that would be a sweet gig.
Just shout out to Aaron McDowell. Definitely appreciate the help there. So
no kidding. That's amazing. Well, make sure you guys check it out. You guys have some real talent over there at the Dynasty Command Center. It's another one. Ryan McDowell, a regular on the show, is there. TJ Hawkins, a regular on the show, is over there.
Brian Malone, regular on the show.
Regular the show. Who am I missing here? Curtis, and I don't know that he's been on the show once, I think, when I was here. I don't know. So I can't say regular, but been on the show. So obviously some great people and very, very knowledgeable Dynasty guys. So go check it out. What's the website for Dynasty Command Center? Is there even one? Just dynastycommandcenter.com?
Yeah, you can actually check out the dynastycommandcenter.com to find, all the information on our premium Slack and rookie guides and roster analytics and best ball stuff. So yeah, super cool. All right, well, let me do a quick rundown of the show. We'll tell you guys about RotoViz, and then we'll get into it. So we're going to talk through people losing their jobs. We're going to go through a list of players at each position, talk about where we see them in the 2019 season forthcoming, whether or not they have a job. As I endearingly have written as a South Park fan, they took our gerbs. So I'm hopeful. Nathan, that's supposed to be where you hop in. You say gerbs.
I never got into the South Park thing, so there you go.
Okay, well, I guess I'm just going to be on my island. If you're in the car playing along, just go ahead and scream it out. It's fine. All right, so but as I mentioned before, we get and then we'll do a rookie or Devy. That'll be sweet too. Is where Nathan will try to stump us. So that's always fun.
That's Devy or not. We're doing rookie or the Devy, where we compare one 2019 rookie with a Devy player.
I get our bits mixed up. So okay, all right, sweet. I'll talk about.
I'm sure you'll be very knowledgeable on all the Devy players here.
Yeah, I'll be quiet. So that's what I'll be. All right. Well, before we get into the show, I do want to put out a quick reminder that you can support RotoViz by signing up for RotoViz. You can get a 30% discount off of a RotoViz premium account right now. So make sure you go check that out. It's available on our podcast homepage, and it helps support this pod. So you can gain unlimited access to all of our NFL content and tools, and you get amazing value to support the podcast network. And once again, that's rotoviz.com/podcast. Nathan, let's go ahead and hop into the They Took Our Jobs section.
Alrighty, we're going to start off with the quarterback position. I think we're going to start with what is probably the most obvious one entering the offseason, and it's Eli Manning. Will he have a job entering the 2019 season? I'm going to start off with no. I think that at the very least, the Giants invest an early round pick first or 2 rounds at the quarterback position, which might mean that Eli Manning serves as like the Kurt Warner that he had, where first 4 or 5 games he gets beat up a little bit, and then they throw in the young guy. And if not, they might as well give a shot to Davis Webb or whoever the young backup is. I think he's gone. It's Lauletta now. Either one. Anyways, I think some sort of young quarterback is going to get a shot with the Giants, and Eli Manning is going to lose his job or retire. Who knows? That's a possibility as well. What's your outlook on the Giants quarterback situation? Will Eli Manning indeed lose his job, Travis?
Yeah, I don't know if he will, because after 2019, he's pretty much an unrestricted free agent still right now. So I think they might give him one more send-off season. And so I think even if they do draft somebody, let's just say top 15, I'm not sure that immediately means that Eli Manning is going to get benched. I think they've been irrationally committed to him for long enough. Why not make it one more season? So I think that's just where they're probably going to be, even if it's Haskins, who is the obvious quarterback one choice right now.
Yeah, and that's my take too. There's just this class. I don't think. First off, having a rookie come in and just dominate. They have the 6th pick. He would have to show really well in camp to get it right out of the gate. Now, again, as I always say, if you draft a quarterback in the first round, the team has a lot of pressure to put them in within that year usually. And so we've seen it with like Lamar Jackson. We've seen it with basically every single one of the rookies that was drafted in the first round this year. They've gotten their chance. So do they come in and start? Did Sam Bradford start? Yeah, he did. But did he finish? He did not. So that's probably the more likely scenario for me, is that he loses his job somewhere like week 8 to 10 as the Giants start sucking, and then they finally stick him in and the coaching staff tries to save their job.
Yeah, I might feel different, more confident in him losing his job if I felt like they could get, a Tua Tagovailoa or Trevor Lawrence,
or they were in the first pick, and those are the guys who come out of the gate swinging usually, the first and second picks. 6 is gonna
right, but in all, like, they're projected to be the team that takes the QB1 with that 6th pick. There's not really anyone in the top 5 picks other than possibly a Raiders, if we talk about Derek Carr losing his job in a little bit. But other than that, for the most part, the top 5 has young quarterbacks or quarterbacks that are cemented in their place. So, I don't think it really matters that much whether the QB1 goes 1 overall, the QB1 goes 6 overall. That player is going to have pressure to start early and, to be the franchise quarterback for a team.
Well, again, I just am not sure that the draft order holds as it sits right now. I feel like you could, like, somebody's going to move up because there's a lot of QB needy teams.
And not very many good quarterbacks in this class.
Bingo. All right, well, let's go ahead and pivot on to our next guy and talk about Jameis Winston. This is your boy, Nathan. Jameis Winston's kind of had a resurgence in value after the coaching change here. What are your thoughts on him keeping his job, Nathan? As a hometown man, I'll let you start.
I think that he's played just well enough to, at the very least, let the Bucs let him play out his contract.
Yeah.
I think that with Winston, it's like, I'm not sure if you really want him to be your franchise guy, but he's just good enough above replacement level that it's like, well, it's either Jameis Winston or Ryan Griffin. And obviously Ryan Griffin is not a franchise quarterback. So I think Winston at the very least holds on to a starting job in Tampa for 2019. But I do think that the future is a bit uncertain and there's some volatility with his future.
Yeah, what's Winston's deal? He's got the option this year, and they
picked up his 5th-year option.
Yeah,
and so technically they can cut him in February with no penalty, but there's no reason to do that. So he's on a 1-year deal.
Got it. Yeah, absolutely. I'll just hop in real quick and say I pretty much agree with that. I think he's going to be fine, and he's one of those guys that's like just average quarterback. I'll lump Andy Dalton kind of into that, where it's just difficult to find somebody better than them without investing just a ton in it.
Yeah, I think he's going to get a similar deal where, we've seen some quarterbacks, like even Blake Bortles got extended, like guys that had no business really getting real money. They get real money because it's so hard to play the quarterback position. So I don't think he's really at risk. I think they'll stick with him, give him kind of a cheap deal with an out after 2 years beyond this year. with the cheap cut past, let's just say 2021, after they kind of figure something out in the middle of this year, it's probably going to look similar to whatever, Mariota's deal ends up being too. It's funny that they were supposed to be, that same class, picks 1 and 2, supposed to be great quarterbacks, both had hot starts to their career. And now we're talking about whether they're going to lose their job or not.
I mean, yeah, you remember like Mariota being like the discussions of like, is he the overall dynasty QB1? And like, man, has that gone gone silent over the years. I think that's all spot on. Who do you want to do next, Nathan, in the list?
Let's go with Ryan Tannehill, who's the next one on the list. I think that he is one that he's going to have an NFL starting job somewhere, but I think that of the quarterbacks that we'll talk about tonight, he's the most likely to get traded or to get cut and then re-signed somewhere else. I think that the Dolphins are done with Tannehill. That they have the new coach coming in, Brian Flores. I'm not even sure who his offensive staff is going to be, but I think they're going to want to start new in Miami with a quarterback position if at all possible. So, I mean, we talk about the draft order shaking up. The Dolphins could be a team that try and trade up for a Haskins or a Kyler Murray. Some people have them taking Kyler Murray just at 13. I think that Tannehill is not long for a job in Miami, but just like Winston, he's just good enough above replacement level quarterback that he's going to find a way to get a job. And if not a job, like, kind of like the Tyrod deal where he ends up being, the bridge quarterback to getting a young guy up in the field.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I think this year he could lose his job at some point in the middle of the season, and then they cut bait and all they have is about $5 million in dead cap after this year, which isn't crazy. So, I mean, he's got a weird deal to try to trade. I think it's like it's over 25 million. I'm pretty sure on his annual cap hit. So that's tough to trade. But, if it's a really QB needy situation and they recognize he has an easy to cut deal next year, I could see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the more likely scenario. Even if they draft high, they'll keep Tannehill around. I mean, he's serviceable enough that if he's your number 2 on the team, I mean, he'll moan, but I mean, also he's never really been the loud like complain about not getting enough attention or not getting the love. So he'd be the kind of guy who probably could sit on the back burner for a year and just wait for his deal the following year, wait to get paid somewhere. I could certainly see that happening. I don't know that I don't see him losing his job next year, so to speak, but I think the writing's on the wall that he's not going to be there in Miami. He's not their answer for the foreseeable future.
All right, let's move on to Derek Carr. Will he survive another offseason with John Gruden at the helm? I think that he is the one who is most likely to get traded just because teams might actually want him as opposed to some of these other guys. But also the salary cap obviously becomes a big part of that, and what the penalties are for trades and things like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll see how things like that play out. But Carr, once again, I think he's going to be a starting quarterback. I'm just not sure it's in Oakland.
Yeah, that's and Gruden's just wild enough to actually do this move where he takes a average quarterback and trades him off or does something. I think he'd be the guy who actually could find a price tag that he would do it. So I mean, if they draft a quarterback in the top 5, I think it's the writings everywhere that's that's the direction that they're going to be going. And I think Gruden wants his guy at this point too.
Yeah, and I think the Raiders actually pre-Gruden did something smart and actually extending Carr pretty early. I mean, they kind of locked themselves into, as far as quarterback money goes, a pretty cheap deal. Like we're just talking about how Tannehill's due like 25, 26 million this year. Well, Carr's actually got 4 years worth, all cheaper than that. So I definitely agree with people are not only going to want him because he's probably a better option than somebody like Tannehill, but also he's about 4 million cheaper. And that 22 or whatever it is per year cap hit, it's going to look cheaper and cheaper and cheaper every year that he's signed. So that's going to be a decent deal for whoever has him, because which is weird. We're talking about 22 million being cheap, but that's just the market we live in these days. So I think, we could see a crazy move with him if somebody wanted to come call and get a serviceable quarterback.
Well, let's talk about kind of dynasty trade sides of that coin, because Carr's dynasty value right now is pretty ice cold, even in super flex leagues. I mean, I don't know if anybody out there tooting the horn to go out and buy him. I mean, is this somebody who we see landing on his feet somewhere else? Somebody you could target for like a second round pick if you could make it happen in like a super flex league, trying to put him on your team?
Yeah, that's definitely a price I'd be willing to pay a shot in the dark at. At the very least, he ends up being a low-end NFL quarterback, and that's worth something in Superflex. So I think that I'd be fine throwing like an early second and a mid-third or something around that price range. But obviously, more often than not, people are, when it comes to metal hits the road, or I don't know what the saying is there, but rubber meets the road. Rubber meets the road. People aren't really dealing starting quarterbacks for that price because they know even the worst starting quarterbacks are worth something in Superflex.
But I think this is the point where you have a lot of car owners that are very skeptical that he continues to have a job and could see this as like I get out before the bottom falls out kind of thing. And especially if the Raiders draft a QB at pick 5, then that bottom will fall out value-wise. So I completely agree. I think maybe the play here is when and if that happens, to start targeting Carr for very cheap prices and dangle that like in front of the owner, saying, "Oh, well, well, I'll take him off your hands and I'll handle the risk. You take the second round pick and feel good about it."
Yeah, it's really it's hard to tell really, but every league is unique especially with Superflex values. I found all my Superflex leagues are just weird. They're just unique to finding values. The right value for Carr and quarterbacks like him are going to be tough, especially when there's questionable value. But I'm with Nathan in that, you just any quarterback that has any remote shot at starting has value.
Yeah, I mean, well, going through the list of people that we've talked about already, like Tannehill, I don't think I would be thrilled about purchasing for a second round pick. Manning, I don't think I want for that either, because I think his career is very short for the road. So those are, I mean, Winston, I think there's been a bit of a hot stove for Dynasty Twitter on Winston right now. Like I said, with coaching change, but all the others, I think Carr and Winston are the only two I would have really much interest in owning out of the ones we've talked about thus far.
That's true.
Yeah, I would also have interest in our next guy, and that's Andy Dalton of the Cincinnati Bengals.
Red Rifle.
Red Rifle. And the one thing, honestly, the short term of Andy Dalton's career is completely reliant on Zach Taylor, on what he wants to do at the quarterback position. Obviously, he's not in quite a position to invest in a franchise quarterback where they are in the draft. Certainly, they could try and trade up and go about it that way. But do you really want to do that when you have like Andy Dalton is a good quarterback? Maybe he's not like a Super Bowl winning quarterback, but Joe Flacco is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. So
he's also not a playoff game winning quarterback, I'd like to point out too. So
yeah, I mean, but you're not a playoff winning quarterback until you win playoff games. Like, I feel like that's just, some bad luck and, just having, some difficult matchups and things like that. But with Dalton, I think that he's a good quarterback. He's going to be on starting for a team pretty much. I mean, I don't know. Is Andy Dalton considered like a lock to be a starter, even if he were to be elsewhere, Travis? Or do you think there's a shot that he's in the quarterback competition?
I think he has to be in that competition type tier. I mean, like, I don't know. I don't really want to know. He had a couple decent seasons. I'll give him that. That's great. But I think he's just to the point where I don't think anyone's seriously wanting him to be their franchise quarterback. So he'd be a really great backup. It's like, how long did Blaine Gabbert need to be a starter before the world was like, you know what? You're a backup now. And so Dalton's probably a step up from that.
Yeah, but that's unfair, I think, with Gabbert. I mean, Gabbert was never good. I mean, and Dalton is never good in the postseason, but here's what I'll say. At no point in owning Andy Dalton in a super flex league have I ever felt bad or uncertain about putting him in my lineup, because the guy just doesn't give you 7 points. The guy's basically a lock for 12 to 15, and he's got the upside for 32. So he's one of my favorite QB2s in a super flex format, just for that reason, that I think he's got the upside and a very high floor.
Yeah, and this is kind of just a random thought, but I think that if the Raiders lose Derek Carr through a trade, I think that Andy Dalton might be a target in a trade for John Gruden, because he loves to collect veteran quarterbacks. And so he might see something in Andy Dalton. I'm sure that there's tape of him praising how great the Red Rifle is on Monday Night Football.
Well, yeah, that's literally everyone.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean that was the joke, Eric.
No, I'm just yeah. Man, he's great.
All
this
right.
guy.
let's close out the quarterback position with the guy who I think on this list is the most guaranteed lock to not have a locked-in starting job week 1 of 2019, and that is Blake Bortles. Now, the Jaguars are certainly devoid of talent at the quarterback position, so it might not be the fact that the Jaguars bring someone in to plant him. It's more so they just end up releasing him. And then Blake Bortles is not going to find himself signing with a team as a starter. He will sign with a team as he's going to be our backup. And if our guy gets hurt, then it's okay to bring in Bortles in relief. So I think that there's pretty much no shot that he has a locked-in starting job week 1 of 2019.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
The Blaine Gabbert. That's
yes,
he is. Although even he had like that one year where he like just blew it up and had like 30-point games all over the place when they were like playing from behind the whole time. I think it was 3 years ago. That even he had like more ups. He had like a higher ceiling than Blaine Gabbert. I have no fond memories of Blaine Gabbert being on my squads. Not a single one.
All right, let's move on to the running back position. We're not going to hit on all these names, guys, so I figured I'll just pass along to each of you to pick a name or two. Travis, which running back will be losing value and lose his job in 2019?
I think out of all these, I was actually looking at Chris Carson here recently and just thinking to myself, man, his average draft position is incredibly high. And so I was like, why is that? And I looked and he actually had 1,100 yards last year, which was crazy. Yep. But then at the same time, it's also crazy that the 27th pick or whatever it is overall is just watching him do it, getting 85 touches. I think they're probably going to just muddy up that situation, and it's not going to be worth your while to invest anywhere near the prices that you are having to right now, considering what he just did with 1,100 yards last year. I think that's going to be his best season ever, and they're not just going to throw away a first-round draft pick in Rashad Penny and say, you know what, you can just ride the bench. That's fine. So I guess out of the crew that I'm looking at here, which there's like a dozen of them, that's one that, at least based on where he's going right now, I'm super uncomfortable with his value.
Yeah, and he's a guy that I had on a couple of squads for free, mind you. That's what you got him for. But I saw the window to sell him for a first to contenders before any of the trade deadlines hit for our leagues, and that was really my goal, was to hold hard and fast for a first round pick, and I got it pretty much across the board. So, I don't know, that's such a weird spot, but just based off of like the data that we have on how this works, if you draft a running back or a position in the first round and the guy in front of you who doesn't have as much draft capital is succeeding, it doesn't matter that the guy who was drafted higher just seems to find a way like 9 out of 10 times. And so in this case, I don't know, maybe this will be the exception of the rule, but I like the fact that, unloading Carson now seems like the right move. I'll throw out my guy that I'm really worried about is somebody who's been a proponent of him throughout the years, and that is Leonard Fournette, another guy who's got a ton of draft capital. But that's a player and a team that I think is just crazy enough and just offended enough by this guy that they might start siphoning things off of his plate. They got Carlos Hyde. It scares the crap out of me as a Fournette owner in several places. I just think like the off-field stuff and just like he looks like a plotter. He looks like Zach Stacy. He doesn't look like this amazing. He looks like Trent Richardson right now. He does not look like this amazing first-round talent like Barkley or somebody like that at this point in his career. And I don't know. He's a guy that I think could be a sleeper for like biggest fall this season, from like a draft capital of like in the 3rd, 4th round to he's like completely in the 16th round. You're hoping he gets, like a Trent Richardson fall from grace, basically, is what I could see happening.
Yeah, I think that I obviously you say this every time, like you're a fan of a guy who ends up getting cut, and if he ends up getting cut because they voided his guarantees because of the suspension, I think he'll bounce back. He'll land on a team and end up being the RB1, whether it's in Jacksonville or whether it's somewhere else. And yes, maybe he's not going to be worth that top 5 selection they spent on him, but I think that he's a low-end RB1, high-end RB2 for fantasy. I don't think he's got the T-Rich bust type, value coming towards him. I think it's more so.
T-Rich, the season before he busted we would have said the exact same thing about him.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm certainly within the range of outcomes, but I just don't. I'm still a believer in the talent. I think he's a very good running back. He just has to be in the right situation. He has to be on a team that actually believes in him. And a good offense. The Jags were flat out an awful offense this year, and that's generally not a good thing for a running back who doesn't get involved in the passing game and is an in between the tackles runner.
And one thing I will say about him is I do think the dynasty community is starting to sour on him, so it is not the time to sell him. Because I think
unless you really think the bottom's going to fall out, and then
unless you think he's going to 0, yeah. Because I'm not selling him for a second round or like the 112 at this point. Like I drafted him far too high to sell that way.
Yeah, and I really do think that. I mean, he's just riding on his name. I mean, he's been famous since he was 16 years old, pretty much. People basically etched his name in stone as their first round draft pick when he, for 2017 when he was entering college. And so I think there's a little bit of that just going on, but I think he's got the ankle issues that are far more serious than I think a lot of people are mentioning right now too. They have been for a few years now. So not super pumped about a guy coming off a season with 3.3 yards per carry and degenerative ankle problems. But
no, I mean, what can you sell him for right now, though, that you're happy with? Like if you have Fournette, because that's actually a question I'm wrestling with right now. It's because I'm overexposed, admittedly, and I'm like, I'm not sure what point I want to be unloading.
Yeah, I don't think I could give you a rational sell point. I only have one share of him right now, and it was one that I had from just an old Debbie share I had from forever ago. Yeah, but I don't know because I don't think his startup value is much greater than what his trade value is probably right now because he's still going in like the 30s or so in terms of picks, according to DLF ADP. But not sure you pull that. Like that's probably 1.02 value in this class or so. Would you guys be interested in that price?
I mean, yeah,
not buying, but I certainly. I'd be buying more in like the 107 to 108 range, and I certainly wouldn't sell for anything less than a mid first.
Yeah, I think the number that the pick that keeps coming into my head is like I don't know, like the 104, something like that. Is like when I start having to. That's like what I'm wrestling with. But yeah, if I were able to get like the 102 for him, I would do that kind of in a heartbeat. I don't think that's that close, especially as overexposed as I am. Just trying to make that work. Because it does. It just scares me. And I don't think the thing is like, I think you made a very good point, Travis, is that like he's riding his name. Nothing we've seen on the field has looked spectacular. Like he gets 30 carries a game. Of course he's going to be productive.
Yeah. All right. I'll go on to my pick. And I think that it's more of a question mark more so than, an actual statement. But Aaron Jones, going into the offseason, I was kind of expecting that the hype train would build. And it's like, oh, Aaron Rodgers long-term RB1. Aaron Jones is going to be a top 12 dynasty running back. And maybe that's the case for some people. But in a lot of these early mock drafts, whether it be Draft Twitter or even Big Draft like Mel Kiper and those guys, a lot of people have like Josh Jacobs and other early round running backs going to the Packers. And I don't necessarily see running back as a huge need for them. I think Aaron Jones is just fine. Maybe he's not like a top 5 running back or anything, but I think that, he's a very serviceable NFL running back, and the Packers have plenty of needs elsewhere. Travis, do you see Aaron Jones at risk for losing his job or like some of Draft Twitter does, or are you more of just this is a bit of an overreaction?
I think it's definitely an overreaction, and I'm not really worried about this draft class of running backs either. I think there's going to be a pretty hilarious small number of running backs that actually get drafted in this class in general. And I think the way the hype's going for Josh Jacobs, he's going to go before the Packers anyway for no reason. I mean, I like him. He's good, but he's got weird holes in his profile. And if like there's not another guy that you're really excited about that you believe is going to be a day one option, I don't think any running back really deserves to be taken day one in this class. So I'm not super worried about Aaron Jones, and I don't think the Packers go and buy a really expensive free agent at the position either. So I believe in the talent, and I believe in the other options not being great anyway. So.
Yeah, I mean, this backfield has actually turned into something that's not a problem, where Aaron Jones is electrifying when he's on the field, and even when he's not on the field, like Jamal Williams can handle the load and is okay. He's not great, but he's enough. He's Chris Carson or what. I mean, maybe maybe that's unfair to Chris Carson, but very very similar, like unsexy production. Just by having Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. So no, I don't think that that's the case. I think that there's so many other needs on that team that they don't even explore that. I don't even think they brush against. They might take like a 5th round guy just to shore it up, but that's all I see. One other guy that I'd feel like pointing out here is that's on our list that I do not think is going to lose this job, which I've said before, and this is Damian Williams. I think he's started to show himself as more than just a dude, just a guy. I think he's a guy that's sneaky right now to pick up on your rosters, which I've said on the show before.
Is he though? Is he sneaky? I feel like people are valuing him at like a mid-first right now.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, well, yeah, that's nuts. Then I mean, here's what I'll say: is if you listen to the first time I told you to pick him up and he looked good in that game, that was the time to do it. If the price tag's in the first round now, then no, it's over. The dream's dead, y'all.
Yeah, he's like going in, I think it's the 70s or something. The last time I checked for average draft position this month, which is probably mid-first-ish.
Oh yeah, no, that's nuts. I mean, it's crazy how quick this that just flips on a dime. But I mean, if a guy's productive and in a prolific offense, that's what it takes, right?
Well, the one thing on the Williams side here is that they did give him an extension, so you know that they have faith in him, and they gave him the touches in the big pressure games in the playoffs. So certainly, I don't think they enter the season with Damian Williams and Charcandrick West as their only running backs. But I think that it's not out of the range of outcomes where he's just the RB1 there, and then maybe there's a spell running back 4th, 5th round guy. So I do like Williams, but not at like the mid-first price tag. If I can get him around an early second, I think that's more appropriate.
I mean, what's crazy is he didn't flash really at all in that entire stint in Miami, and then he gets this shot and he looks incredible. So I don't know. I'm really on the fence with him, but I'm not paying a mid-first round pick for him.
All right, let's move on to the wide receiver position. And I'm going to start us off just so I can get under Travis's skin a little bit here. And we're going to start off with Corey Davis. He's not going to be cut by the Titans. He's not even going to be benched by the Titans. But is there fear that the Tennessee Titans invest in a wide receiver 1 in free agency or in the draft, and therefore hurting the future of one Corey Davis?
No, I think all the buzz here is as far as like with the draft, they're probably going to go edge early. Maybe they take another wide receiver later on, but I think with their first round pick, they're going to get edge defender or one of the interior linemen. There's really a bunch of solid line edge options in this draft, probably a dozen that are worthy of top 50 consideration. And so I think that's probably going to be the priority given their departures in free agency, retirements, etc. So I think they've got so many other options that they're trying to shore up. And for some reason, they want to make Tajay Sharp stick and make it feel like a 5th round pick was a hit, but he just isn't. He's just not good at football. But Corey Davis, maybe they do something, but Corey Davis is still going to be the guy, and he's going to have some healthy amount of targets. And he didn't have a blow up year, but he did have almost 900 yards even with all the crap that happened. So
I mean, yeah, he's flashed enough. He just hasn't flashed enough as the 101 overall rookie pick. Like from that valuation that everybody took him as the first pick, like, sorry, it didn't really work out for you. Like that value is not there after. I mean, maybe he'll turn into it, but thus far that's not the case. But he certainly has been far from a bust. He's a very serviceable wide receiver too.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's going to lose his job. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's like, who's taking it? Are they bringing Rashad Matthews back? Is that who's coming back to take the job? Like, no, that's not what's happening. It's definitely not going to happen. I'll throw my hat into the ring of the guy that I think is going to lose his job, and a guy who I've been very down on since he came into the league, and that is old Stonehands Devin Funchess. I will be. I see nothing there that makes me happy, and He's the guy that, to me, Dynasty, and there's still people that love this guy in Dynasty, and that's great. Like, if you have him, go sell him. But there is no. I see Travis shaking his head that there are not. No, there are still people who love Devin Funchess or like Devin Funchess maybe at this point.
Why?
Exactly why? That he's replaceable, and that at the bottom of the line is what we're talking about. We're saying which one of these guys is replaceable in the draft that somebody comes in day one in training camp and looks better than Devin Funchess. I can buy into that theory.
Yeah, I mean, he is a impending free agent as well, and I think that any sort of movement would be a bad thing for him. I think in Carolina, he kind of stays as the wide receiver too if he re-signs behind DJ Moore. But I think that any sort of leaving to another team would be bad for his value because at best he'd be a wide receiver 3 elsewhere.
Or just make him a tight end. That might work. Greg Olsen retires, make him the tight end. That would work.
No, because that ruins Ian Thomas, who I love. So
just a block.
Yeah,
you can't catch.
I would screw that up for sure. But I don't know. I think mine would be a Manny Sanders. He's kind of over the hill out of this crew that you have listed here. He's got the torn Achilles coming back from that, and they're probably pretty close to just kind of blowing up that whole franchise and just trying to figure things out.
So what do you mean, Travis? Drew Lock isn't going to be the savior?
No, especially if
could be. I mean, but that's blowing it up.
Yeah, that would definitely be blowing it up. And Drew Lock, I mean, I think I talked about this on a podcast here recently, but he really disappeared at times against any remotely relevant competition. Had a couple of decent throws here and there in junk time, but I don't know why he's supposed to be hyped really. And there's really nobody that deserves to be hyped in this quarterback class besides maybe Haskins. So I don't know. It's just Manny Sanders for me out of this crew, just because he's expensive and he's injured, and it's just a lot of things up in the air still.
I'll push back. I think he loses his job because he's expensive, but from an expensive standpoint in Dynasty, he's always been very productive. So this is the type of player that if your team is looking to contend, if you're able to get somebody like Sanders for an early 3rd round pick or a late 2nd round pick and get that production on a team, he's going. I mean, if he comes back healthy from this injury, which I realize is an if, but if he does, then he'll have value. So he's a type of player that if he really falls off the radar completely, if he goes full Julian Edelman in dynasty valuation, that he's the kind of guy that you'd pick up, and he would provide that when he's in the game, he would provide that type of value for your team.
Yeah, all right, let's go ahead, Travis.
I was just saying, fair enough.
All right, let's wrap up our receiver position with Robert Foster. This is a guy who I think it's kind of just assumed this guy is not going to keep the wide receiver 1 job in Buffalo, whether it be through free agency or through the draft. But I think that we are poo-pooing his value a little bit too much, because I think that his amount of production in his rookie season that type of production means that it's going to be a very productive career for the most part. So I think that he is undervalued in Dynasty right now. I'd easily give up a mid to late 2nd for him, and maybe that doesn't buy him because of his late season production. But I think it still could, because people are, like I said, are just assuming there's no way he gets that many targets again, because that the Bills aren't going to set Josh Allen up with no weapons once again. So I think that Foster is a nice depth option at this point, who showed enough promise in year 1 to where he should at least be valued in that early to mid 2nd range.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to lose his job in Buffalo just because there's literally, I think, a scarecrow on the outside. Like I think Foster lines up and the scarecrow's on the other side, and that's it. So I think he keeps his job, but this is the type of fantasy asset, and I've said this before, that I really just have no interest in owning. Even if he turns pretty good, he's explosive, but he is. I mean, looking through he had one week this past season where he caught over 4 balls. It's just not going to be a high yield. It's just not consistent enough for me. He's like a Deshaun Jackson to me, like a best ball type of guy that I want to have, but a guy that I would never feel comfortable sticking in my lineup.
I like having a home run hitter like that. Like especially if I think I'm coming up against a guy that clearly has a better roster than me. I'm like, you know what? Screw you, man. You're going to lose to Robert Foster this week. Congratulations. If you compare anybody with Josh Allen's horrible accuracy, he misses on like a 3-yard slant, but you give him like 7 or 8 deep shots a game. 2 of those are going to land in the breadbasket for Robert Foster, and he's going to take 1 home. So I think it's at least intriguing, especially when his value is like wide receiver 56 right now for ADP. But I don't know. And you're right. The scarecrow's not taking his job either. So
yeah. I mean, well, what I say is like he's a guy. He's nice depth. It's just and you named the one scenario where sticking somebody like that in your roster makes sense, but it's just a situation where every week I sit there and I waffle, and the weeks I do play him, he poos on me. The weeks I don't play him, he he doesn't poo on me and goes off. Granted, I realize that's probably like confirmation bias there. Like I'm a recency bias hitting me in the face. But yeah, he's the type of player that I generally just stay away from. But he will be on the field next year for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the tight end position. Travis, who are you eyeing among this group, or if you have your own that you think might be a better option of who's going to lose their job?
Well, I think there are several tight ends in this rookie class that could come in and immediately insert themselves over possibly all these guys, except for maybe Rudolph. I mean, Eifert's only going to be healthy for about 2.5 quarters. Jordan Reed's going to be healthy for 3.5 quarters. So I think, in an ASJ, I mean, he's just never really been a thing. He's tried.
Yeah, the Jags didn't pick up his option, so he's a free agent once again. Yeah. So kind of just saying, is he going to be a tight end one for an NFL team?
He's already lost it, huh?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the list you have here. They're just a bunch of guys I'm not really worried about. And Jimmy Graham, I mean, even could lose his job. I think people think that his job's a lot safer than it is. So maybe that's my pick, because that's the assumed guy that should be healthy enough and good enough to hold a job, and I don't think he is anymore. So,
and if you remember from this show earlier in the season, I believe all 3 hosts said we don't want anything to do with Jimmy Graham in 2018. So if you listen to us, congrats to you.
There you go. All right, what are your thoughts on the tight end position, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, ASJ already lost his job, as we mentioned, and we've already been on the Jimmy Graham train. I mean, I think I agree. I think all of these guys could lose their jobs. Shaheen is on the list. So just to give you who's left on the list here: Shaheen, Rudolph, Jordan Reed, Eifert. I think all of their jobs are not safe. I think Eifert has I think out of all of them, him and Rudolph, I think, have the highest chance of being back with their respective teams and not losing their jobs, still having a role. I think Eifert will sign cheaper now. And I think the Bengals would be silly not to give him a pretty cheap, like, prove it deal coming off these injuries. And if he is able to stay healthy, he can piece together some real numbers. So I guess my person that would lose his job, because you guys have already taken the other 2, is probably Jordan Reed. I just think that he's going to move on to a different area. When Vernon Davis is as good as you are on the field, unfortunately, it's sad given how dynamic he is, but it's a guy that, like, I think that is just, they don't need him on the field. They don't need him on the squad.
All righty, now it's time for wait, hold on. We'll say that's the mid roll.
Yep.
3, 2, 1. All right, let's move on to a quick game of Rookie or the Devy.
That's why I don't recognize the game, is because you changed up Rookie or the Vet to Rookie or the Devy. Okay, I understand now. I understand. Rookie or the Devy.
Indeed, Rookie or the Devy. So, Eric, I know you'll have lots of contributions during this, but we're going to start off with the quarterback position. And Travis, just to preface, when we talk quarterback, we always just assume Superflex. So we're going to start off with Dwayne Haskins of Ohio State in this draft class, or Trevor Lawrence of Clemson, also known as Sunshine. Which one of these guys are you taking in a Devy league right now?
First off, I don't know if you guys know this, but I work in the music industry in publishing. And so if you guys want to form a country duo and move to Nashville, you got my support. Please.
All right. I will keep that in mind. I've been listening to some country recently because I've been bored with my music, and that's and I'm starting to learn the roots of the song. I can sing about my pickup truck, my 12-pack of beer. I can boat.
Perfect.
Gigging frogs. Taking the back roads.
Basically, you should be signed right now. There's Dan and Shay, and then there's Eric and Nathan.
There it is. That's right. Brooks and Dunn of the group. All right, let's move on.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, Trevor Lawrence, that dude is the truth. That guy's the truth. Like, if he was in this class right now, if he could enter the draft after his true freshman season, I would be like, you know what? First pick overall. You can have all the money. Just take it. 10-year, a John Gruden deal. Yeah, we're just going to trade that out. You have that John Gruden deal. Like that's who I'm wanting. And it's not really close for me. I like Haskins, but Trevor Lawrence 2 years from now, that's the truth right there.
But that, I mean, I guess because right now he's the truth, right? But a lot can happen from being a 19-year-old kid. And this is always what I flirt with in Devy leagues, just regardless, is like realized value now, which Haskins will have, versus value down the future that's significantly higher, but the uncertainty is so much higher. That this is like the perfect question of that, where I think the trap is to take Trevor Lawrence because he's the better player right now. But who knows? Who knows what happens to him? Maybe he picks up a habit in college because he's a big celebrity now. Maybe, you know, like I don't know. Like there's any number of things that can happen to somebody from when I was 19 or 18 going to 22. A lot of things happened as a person. So I don't know. This is one that I think it's Trevor Lawrence again, because I just don't think Haskins is a sure thing. I think Haskins could very well be a quarterback that does not, the next Blaine Gabbert. This show also sponsored by Blaine Gabbert, by the way. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's Lawrence, but I just felt like it was worth pointing that out. But maybe you have a better way to do it, Nathan, since you play a lot more Devy.
For me, this is Dwayne Haskins, because it's just so much the certainty and the value of a quarterback that's going to be on my roster this year and is possibly going to be starting games for me this year that, you know, we've talked about just being a starting quarterback in the NFL has a value. And so you have the wait time of, you know, Trevor Lawrence. You have to wait at least 2 years for him to be the best quarterback prospect ever. So certainly his value could rise some from being, now he's the greatest quarterback prospect ever, to now he's the greatest quarterback prospect ever, and now he's in the NFL. That's the way his value could rise. Whereas Dwayne Haskins, if he has a really great rookie season or first great couple of years in the NFL, he goes from good to great prospect to great NFL quarterback. And so there's certainly a higher ceiling for Haskins in the immediate years because he's going to be doing it at the NFL level. And then there's the floor of he's going to, as of now, it looks like he's a top 10 NFL draft pick. And yes, so is Trevor Lawrence, but it's still 2 years away on that.
Yeah, it's just a wild. I mean, you're exactly right. It's like there's a math equation to this for sure of like if Trevor Lawrence turns into Andrew Luck when he catches up value, because Andrew Luck was the sure truth, but Andrew Luck for like 3 years in his NFL or 2 years in his NFL career was nothing for you. So if you did take, I'm like trying to think of a comparable example of that, like took a guy I'm blanking from like 2 years earlier in the draft that was like more of a mid-tier quarterback that I bet you he largely has outproduced, and Andy Dalton maybe.
All right.
Yeah, it's different. I just think it's different with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, like he was the truth before he was even in college. Like this is not just a reaction to the college football playoff. This is like before he was even done with the recruiting season. He was the #1 overall prospect according to 24/7 Composites ranking. They gave him a rating. Like they give these players ratings. He had a .9999 rating. Like it's just like keep on going with the nines. Like they don't give perfect ratings. He had the most perfect rating you can possibly have as a prospect. I think it's just like Andrew Luck was a kind of a slam dunk coming in as a recruit, and then he kind of took off, and then it was the obvious decision. Trevor Lawrence is like the best quarterback prospect of like the last 10 years. And so I think that's, for me, that's why I don't care what time value money equation we're setting out and his expected interest rate in terms of rookie draft picks or whatever. I just think it's going to be Trevor Lawrence.
Okay, I mean, and that's totally fair. I think that's fair, and I think that you're basically saying I'm going to have a guy for 10 years once he gets into the league.
Something like that. Hopefully.
All right, let's move on to some running backs. We got David Montgomery of Iowa State. Many consider him the RB1 in this class. Or Cam Akers, who was the top recruit coming out of going into Florida State. And many claim him as the top 2020 running back, or 2020 running back as of right now. So which way are you leaning with this, rookie or the Devy? We'll go with Travis first.
Here I'm going to go with David Montgomery, and it's for the opposite reasons, kind of like what you guys were saying. You get the player now, and I actually believe in David Montgomery. He's been my running back one in this class for a bit. And I think he's going to plug in and have a role immediately year one. And Cam Akers was a weird prospect to begin with, even coming out of high school. He was basically a wildcat quarterback, kind of a weird way to confidently put him as the #1 running back when he really wasn't even the conventional position until he got to college. And now he's probably maybe my 5th running back for next year. If he, comes out next year. So I'd say Montgomery for me right now.
Yeah. And this is just a philosophy side of things for me. And especially with running back is like, this is an extreme example of production now, please. And I'll take the production now.
Yeah.
All right. My take is I'll take Akers here. The Florida State offense was absolutely pitiful. A joke. It shouldn't have even been a D1 offense. That's how bad their quarterback situation has been the last couple of years. And so he certainly hasn't been put in the best situation to succeed. But when he has flashed, he's flashed as, wow, this guy could legit be an RB1 in the NFL, top 10 running back. And I just haven't seen that flash from David Montgomery. I feel like we're looking at the elusive ratings from PFF from 2017, and that is still like carrying David Montgomery to being an RB1. So there is some risk involved in waiting the year on Akers, but I think he's more explosive and a higher upside prospect.
Fair enough.
All right, next one will be Joshua Jacobs of Alabama.
Let's do one more of these two, Nathan. I feel like we're running a little bit long.
Okay, then we'll do wide receiver then. Ready?
You can just go. I'll leave it all in.
I know. I just want to give it a second so you can edit this better.
I'm not going to edit it. Just go ahead.
Yes, you're going to edit it.
Yeah, I bet you it's going to be in the show. Want to listen?
No, I'm not going to listen. I'm unsubscribing right now. Here we go. Our last one will be the wide receiver position, and it's going to be N'Keal Harry, the consensus wide receiver 1. Or not? I'd say that's fading a little bit. I would say many people have him valued as the wide receiver 1 in this class. And Rondale Moore, who had arguably the most impressive freshman season from a wide receiver we've seen in a long time. Travis, thoughts on Harry versus Moore?
Quick question, though. Did you actually know I was a Purdue graduate?
I don't think so.
Boiler up, baby.
Boiler up, man. I was like, oh, that's awesome. You threw Rondale Moore in just for me, but no, that's cool. That's fine. I
mean, I'm in love with Rondale Moore. I think he's the greatest wide receiver to ever live. So
good. You would be right then. I think I could gush about Rondale Moore for an entire podcast, but I won't. But I think you got to wait 2 more years for him, and he is 5'9". He is 175. There's a lot that we still probably have to see from him. And I think N'Keal Harry, the price that he warrants right now from a lot of people and has for a couple of years already, and now we're finally getting to see him go pro. I think right now the pick for me would be Harry, although I can't wait to see Moore make it, because he's Hornung Award winner, most versatile player in college football. Recent winners of that award would be Christian McCaffrey, Odell Beckham Jr. Some real game-changing talents. Basically, the last 5 winners of the award that Rondale Moore just won this past year for most versatile player were all first-round NFL draft picks. So I can't wait to see him in the pros.
Yeah, I'll go here and I'll say, while I do love Rondale Moore, that I think that I'll go ahead and take N'Keal Harry here just because of the safety and price. He's going to be a top draft pick this year. You can get the points immediately. But it speaks to how good Rondale Moore is. 1,200 receiving yards, 200 rushing yards, 2-way player. That the fact that he can compete after 1 year with a guy who's basically being considered the 101 right now, Rondale Moore is very, very good and should be the Devy 101 in all your Devy leagues this year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'll stick with Harry too. I don't have a lot to add to it, so I'll go that direction. But yeah, it was an impressive season for the Purdue Boilermaker there.
Already wrap us up.
All right. Well, that'll end the show. And as you heard when I announced to Nathan that was going to be our last one and made him pick because I'm leaving it in the show, you'll know that this is now the end of the show. So I want to thank Travis for coming on the show. Make sure you follow Travis on Twitter at @FF_TravisM. Make sure you check out the Dynasty Command Center and the Dynasty Command Center podcast. DynastyCommandCenter.com is where you can go find that, or you can find them on Twitter, or really just follow him on Twitter and you'll see. So appreciate you for being on the show. Anything you want to add at the end here?
I just always appreciate you guys. I've been on this pod with you a few times now, and it's always a joy to see your lovely faces. And just the sheer, the impressive just professionalism of you leaving various things in the show like you do.
I know. It's really just leaving it.
But no, it's always a great time. So I appreciate you guys. Yeah, we're glad to join anytime, and I'm so happy that we get to talk about Rondale more. So yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, make sure you leave 5-star ratings and reviews on iTunes and anywhere you listen to the podcast. That helps other listeners find us. We appreciate it very, very much. Enjoy the Super Bowl this week. And, I don't know that I have too much else. So, Nathan, what do you say?
Kadoosh.
Kadoosh. We'll see you next week.